My next guest is someone who's been on the podcast with us before in, well, let's just describe them as happier times. Jim McCarthy, Managing Partner of MC2 Accountants. How are you?
I'm good, Jonathan. Thank you.
Obviously, it's a very weird environment. Before we get into what you're doing, how have the last few weeks been for you guys? Accountancy, you're a very hands-on business. You like meeting people. It's all face-to-face and all of that vanished overnight.
All vanished overnight. I suppose we have two kind of distinct aspects to our business, and the traditional accountancy work has continued, with our staff working from home. It's actually quite a good time to try and get accounts done because generally you spend a lot of time chasing people for books and records. But I suppose in the current climate, most of our clients were at home, so it was easy enough to access the information. So that side of the business has managed to kind of continue as normal, as such. Another large part of our business would be the corporate finance side of the house, where we've a specialised team in MC2, people dealing with normally banking, tax, consultancy and property and investment. That's been a lot more challenging to try and keep that aspect of it because you need that kind of face-to-face interaction with clients. And it's also probably the most in-demand services that are in the practice at the moment, given the conditions some of the companies are in,
I mean, look, you're accountants at the end of the day, but accountants, despite their reputation, do have a heart. And what you would want to do is almost put the virtual arm around the fella sitting in front of you who's in trouble. You can't do that right now. I mean, that must be making your life very, very tricky. That assurance, that support you want to give, even if someone is in trouble, you must be finding it very hard to do that.
Yeah, and I sometimes find the kind of the messages that we're sending out, in terms of, I suppose we'd be asking clients to have a serious review where they're at, especially clients that we find, Jonathan, that are like certain. We all know a certain element of the business is like in the hospitality side of the business have stopped trading, and you hear a lot of word in the street about bars must be in trouble, hotels must be in trouble, but in a lot of those cases they've managed to stop the cash burn quite significantly. And for I think as long as they stay closed for as long as possible, they should come back strong enough at the other side of this. The businesses I have most concern about are the businesses that are actually trying to trade through it. For example, retailers, which would have a fairly strong online presence, they've had to keep their brand alive. They've had to keep certain elements of their business going. And to me, they're the businesses that are kind of in most danger, and particularly as we start to open up again now.
It's funny you say that because I had a conversation last week with people who were in the hospitality sector, and I came away from that conversation saying they were actually the happiest, most relaxed people I had spoken to in a long time. Because everyone else is either trying to breathe life into something that's half working or have been going at full tilt in a really weird environment. Strangely, those who have been tuned out and have no business to go to are the most zen at the moment, aren't they?
Absolutely, absolutely. But if you compare, say, a hospitality business to say a large retailer, the big critical difference between the two is the stock. So the retailers will be carrying significant stocks. So while the bars and the restaurants and the hotels closed, they're dealing with breweries and major food suppliers, so they were able to handle their creditors a lot easier. Whereas if you take retailers, they could be they'd have a lot of seasonal stock, spring stock, summer stock. They would have already had put down deposits on their Christmas stock, and they would stand. Like part of your advice would be to sell all the stock that you have at a discount, but they're already committed to buying more stock in for Christmas. So that's a far more challenging sector. So these businesses can't afford to really just go to sleep, as we call it, cocooning. So a lot more advice, a lot more proper management is required in that area, and
which is where presumably Chrysalis Corporate Planning comes in, which is your new product. What is it, and who's it aimed at?
I suppose, I was kind of seeing all of these kind of COVID. I actually, to be honest with you, I got tired of looking at the virus that was popping up on everybody's screen. Remember that virus screen, you'd see it and the various reliefs come out under it. And in MC2, we started working with the JO, our marketing partner, in terms of like just come up with something different. And I had been talking a lot about this whole idea that I kept advising businesses, if they could at all possible, to kind of cocoon their business and put their business to sleep. And along with the Geo, we came up with Chrysalis on the basis, it's like the caterpillar cocoons itself in a protective casing called the Chrysalis. And it prepares to emerge as a beautiful butterfly. And in essence, what MC2 is trying to do here is encourage businesses to have a serious look at their position at the moment and do a solvency test as to where they're at. And, most businesses were flying pre-COVID, okay? And what we're asking them to do is lock down as much of that kind of money that they've made over the years as possible now. In other words, protect itself, cocoon itself. And the whole MC2 suite of services will help them to kind of really assess whether they should open up the business at all. Should they stay closed for longer? Now, you get certain business owners pushing you back on brand and losing key staff and all the rest of it. But I suppose my own personal opinion is that there's nothing wrong with staying closed here for another 4 or 5 months if necessary, if you're protecting the reserves that you have in the business, and instead of risking those reserves and trading through very uncertain times with social distancing.
I mean, cash flow is the huge problem, isn't it? For a lot of those businesses that traded on, those that all of a sudden the cash stopped coming through. I mean, what supports are there in place? We know that there are certain government initiatives, but navigating them and choosing maybe the right product from your bank could be the difference between having a very stressful Christmas and having one where you can trade on and look to the future with confidence.
Yeah, I suppose what we're all seeing emerging now is I would have been against businesses taking on any kind of bank debt, to be honest with you, to fix this, because I think that's just debt that's you're going to be faced with down the road again. And again, I didn't agree with businesses that were trading. If they're borrowing money to trade over the next few months, it could mean that they're losing money underneath, and it's just being sustained by the level of borrowing, and the borrowing isn't going to go away, okay, no matter what the interest rate is on it. What I'm beginning to see now in the marketplace is that since revenue have actually stopped collecting VAT and PAY PRSI receipts, I actually think in an indirect way here, the revenue is becoming the new bank. And people are actually, if you look at some of the cash flows that we've been looking at, are pointed to significant revenue balances that are going to be outstanding come the end of the year. So,
well, you have to pay them back. It's not that they're not a friendly bank. Let's describe them as
absolutely. And I think that's the advice we're given. And I suppose a lot of the detailed cash flow analysis that we're doing in MC2 is, we're trying to kind of, instead of plugging in the revenue as something that's not to be paid out, we're encouraging clients to continue to put revenue payments into their cash flow line as if it is coming out, and put it into a deposit account or put it into some sort of secure account that's there, because otherwise I think we're heading for a disaster in 6 or 9 months' time when revenue start to look at collecting all these bills.
People are looking at opening the business, and that's going to involve a whole different set of challenges, from the physical distancing in a premises to how you're going to manage your staff, how you're going to make sure your staff feels safe, which is something that's huge and hasn't really been countenanced by too many as of yet. Not to mention all the other aspects of this. I have a distinct impression from speaking to companies like yours that the expertise that's on offer hasn't quite been tapped yet, and that there is a significant cohort out there who are not doing the planning that they need to do if they are going to reopen. Do you share my fear?
I share your fear, but I share your fear, and I think my biggest concern is I'm even looking at projections that I think are way too aggressive, given if you're listening to the type of social distancing that's out there and how retailers need to keep their staff safe and how they need to keep their customers safe. I actually can't see that creating a kind of an economic platform for these businesses to make money. So no matter how much we try, and I know this is back into the kind of the economic and health debate, that's thankfully that the economic side is getting more of a voice through the media now, because it is as big, if not a bigger problem out there at the moment, I think, and people aren't going to really see the full extent of this until maybe early next year. But I do agree with you, and I don't think, given what we're hearing from the health bodies, which I understand is perfectly correct in order to protect the people, and this goes back to, should businesses really open up in those environments, or should they stay cocooning until such time as it becomes more feasible to run a business in it?
Okay, well, there is advice out there. You are amongst that cohort offering it. The website, I think, is mc2accountants.ie, if I'm not mistaken. Jim McCarthy, Managing Partner of MC2 Accountants, thanks so much for joining us on Red Business.